you're going to see a little more chaos come the next 12 months. Why do you think that is?
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
You're going to see a lot of chaos come through the next 12 months, same thing that's talking about, which I think is very true. Okay, and so you really want to double down and make sure that you're executing on that highest level the next 12 months and making sure I'm doing what? Focusing on things I can control. I'm not getting sucked into other things. I'm not letting anything else steal my capacity. I want to make sure I can control the controllables, which is super important to do. All right, and so I really sat through and just talked about to myself, and I came up with this, and I'm going to kind of give you two different things of kind of this pyramid of what's most important, and everyone's kind of at a different level on here. And the other thing is that a lot of people tend to oscillate up and down on this pyramid, so-called, I guess you say, real estate success with that. And it's kind of the four main levels that we run into, five of the main levels that we run into that came. All right, so these are kind of the skill sets or the pieces we must master and protect going through the next 12 months, I think. And also, I want you guys just to be aware of it because it's a tool. And it's one thing I want you to understand, too, about what we teach here is like, I want you to understand there's microcosms and macrocosms about what we teach in here. You look at how to operate as a human being, as an agent over a longer period of time. And so if I can help you think differently and help you think better and help you control your mindset really the next 12 months, I think there's a lot of great tools that will help you overall. Discipline. Number one, the most important piece here on the so-called pyramid is discipline. Right? A lot of you guys have mastered that. That's probably the biggest thing that we teach when we come in. That's why there's process in place, systems, there's structure, things like the huddle. They help you create discipline that allows you to help do that. But this is the one thing that's the call to submission, right? Many of you guys are past that. Some of you aren't past that. But you'll never get above that if you don't master this piece of discipline. What does discipline mean overall? Do what I say I'm going to do. Do I show up when I don't want to show up? Do I show up and get things done when things don't feel like they should be done? Right? This is kind of the key, especially going forward the next 12 months, as more chaos is layered on you, as more chaos is layered on over and over and over through all kind of crazy stuff. I think you'll see some false flag stuff, things, all kind of stuff in the next 12 months. That's going to be very interesting. But those that can focus the most and have the most discipline and push through this are going to be the ones that win. Okay? And I kind of just, there's some higher levels here, which I'll help you guys in a minute. But the most important way that I can master this, and you'll never get above your level that you're able to live in fact. Right? So if I got to hold myself to the standard of discipline, what are really the biggest ways that you have to hold yourself disciplined, put yourself in? All right? That's a good one I got on here in a way. But number one is going to be, overall, is going to be the code. What's that mean? Live by the code, right? It's real, raw, relevant. I've taught this a million times, but I just want you to know, especially if you're brand new, like you've got to make sure live by the code. There's many people that have been here for a long time that still don't live by the code. How do I know that? In the daily huddles. Watch the numbers, I watch the dials, I watch the counts, and I watch the answers. And so I get past, you'll never get above the level in which you're living the code. In which you're living in fact, not truth. What's the difference between truth and fact?
Fact is based on data, truth is what you make real.
Truth is the way I want it, right? I live in truth doesn't mean it's the fact. And so I've got to have this ability to make sure I can hold myself accountable and live in this place of fact. Did I do it? Did I not do it? There's no excuses around it. There's no reasons around it. I either did or I did not do it. And it all starts with the small things and how I do anything is how I do everything. And so I got to make sure I master this level of discipline, okay? People have been here for a while. You get that piece of it, right? Second way to master this, at least for me, I've learned this through Core 4. What's that? Putting myself in power every day, right? For me, it's getting up, making sure I'm going to the gym, doing my green smoothies, doing my reading, doing the things that I do, my stack for me in that scenario. Allow myself to put myself in power. What it is, though, it's a way for me to make sure I have discipline. There's study after study after study that says getting up and working out, making sure I'm doing these things allows my mental capacity to be able to build on discipline. This is overall a muscle that's built. The reason I put this here is that so you know, no matter who you are, even the most undisciplined can find discipline if they do what? They work on it. And they focus on it. And they make commitment to it. Okay? Super important piece though. This goes back to schedule as well. you look at your huddle attendance, right? What's the difference in making it, not making it over time? It comes down to my ability to have discipline and hold myself to what? Standard. Super important there. Right? I make sure I have in that scenario. Super simple. And obviously the biggest way to access that, we talked about, is through your body. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So the big he had a body thing last quarter, had the most discipline you ever had. Would you agree? And what happened to your business? Skyrocket, right? All through small shit, and it's almost a mental hack and understanding, right? Super simple shit here. We understand this. This is really the cost of admission. The first two, I think, are the cost of admission. Second piece. What do you think it is? Not yet. It's on there, though. Second piece here is mindset. Why? Mindset. This is very, very important right now. Why? You got to protect the interior from the exterior. Minus out everything that's going on, we're in a business that's very, very difficult, right? And a lot of times it's not a physical job, but you get home, you feel very tired. Why? It's mentally exhausting. So if I know I'm in a job that's mentally exhausting, what is one of the most important things I need to focus and put time in, making sure I invest in? My mindset, period. So I've got to make sure I'm investing in this mindset piece here. So I've got to make sure I'm pushing in this, making sure I'm obviously taking time. So the reason I put this on here is super simple, but I got to make sure I have time blocked out to do what? Protect it. For me, it's in the mornings. For me, I'm filling it up with just things that make my mindset get reignited. I do it when I get up, do it when I do my stack, do it before I go to the gym. Okay, because I have to make sure I do it every day, because if I don't, what happens to my mindset? Deteriorates, and all of a sudden I find myself in this place that's a pit, and it's very hard to get out of. It's much easier to keep out of the pit than it is to climb out. Okay, and so I have to make sure I'm proactive. Some of you in here, your life is like this. Why? There's no proactive protection of the mindset. Right? Something happens in life, throws you off. All this stuff happens. I think like the video said this morning too. Everyone has all kind of shit happening in life. Right? The only difference is how we handle it. And so it's important for me to make sure I'm taking time to protect it over on that. Right? Make sure it must be positive. Make sure it must be focused. And I'm making sure I'm keeping my cup filled. When you're in a job like this, where you deal with people who are not the greatest sometimes, like shitty clients or shitty agents, people that are going to say bad things to you, and all of a sudden it can throw you off. But your job's to do what? Make sure I'm filling that cup faster than it gets drained. So the question is, right? Ask yourself, do I truly have a plan in place to help check my mindset? Third piece here, what do you think it is? It's a skill set. The biggest aha I've had as a businessman in the last 12 months has been how weak our skill sets are. That was exposed to me by, you had this thing where you just tested people, and all of a sudden you test people and realize what? They're not very good. They're average at best. We went through the same thing here. We taught week after week of objections, and what happened when we try to ask a question about objections? Nobody has them. They still don't have them in many cases, right? And so I don't want to have the energy up of the meeting by doing that right now. I thought about it, but I guarantee if I asked most of the room, hardly anybody would have that down to the T. Right? To have it with crisp passion to be able to answer that. And so that's why you're seeing going here. Now here's the reason. Why is mindset before skill set? Because your mindset's not right, your discipline's not right, you're never going to master the skill set. It's harder to do. Why? Because it takes more practice, it takes more reps, and it's a skill set that you have to learn after you're in the game. Right? These pieces right here, below, allow you to get in the game to play. What you do above here is going to determine your success once you're in the game. People that don't master the first two, guess what happens to them? They don't make it in real estate really long. At least for a long time. They'll go up and down for a while, but what happens is the grind and the stress and the roller coaster takes them out overall. And so the skill set piece is by far, I think, the most important that everyone needs to work on right now. Why? It's a changing marketplace. It's a marketplace that's more difficult than ever. You have more competition than ever. You have a shrinking 20% less deals. You have the same amount of agents, more agents than ever before, right? If you look at the last decade or last 2 decades. And so what's happening as the market's contracting, it's exposing most agents' skill set, which in turns what? Making their business go down. And that's why if you look at the numbers right now across MLS, this system that we have that gives us all the data, you'll watch a lot of agents, most agents' business is way down, way more than 20%. Most cases 30, 40, 50%. A lot of other agents, guess what? It's way up. Way more than 20, 30, 40, 50%. Even a lot of larger teams. Why? Because they've mastered this and they spent the most time, in my opinion, in watching this and spending time analyzing it. They've really nailed the skill set piece. And that's why you see it blowing up right now across the every industry. Is why he's really exposed something that most people don't realize, how bad the skill sets are. And so it's important for us to do that, and we make sure we're able to do that. What will the skill set pieces mean, or what matters? Number one, skill sets in what? What do you think? Script. There's people here that'll make the same phone calls for 4 weeks in a row, the script up in the same places, can't figure out why conversion's not working. Right? Many people that'll get objections in the same script and not have the way to overcome it, but do it for 4 weeks in a row. And so the reason I share this is that you're able to go back and use this model to figure out where am I at, where to optimize. I'm going to teach you one more thing after this that kind of goes along with this, but it's super important to make sure that you're just getting the basics right now. This is the fundamentals, right? Next piece is what? What's that? Yeah, speaking would be one for sure. Yep, and I think Andy L talks about it a lot too. Right, next piece is for us going to be presentation. Most of your presentation is decent but not great. How do we know? Look at your sign ratio. Look at who's signing out properties with you, who's signing in person with you. Like, you've got to make sure you're constantly optimizing this right now. And all these here is constantly moving, right? This is oscillating over and over and over. You're going to move through this process in loops. And I'll explain that in a minute. Next piece of that is what? What do you think it is? Scripts, presentations, what else? What was that? Objections. That's the biggest weakness we have right now, I feel, as an organization, is our ability to crisply handle objections, specifically really the top 20% that we get over and over and over, which is what? Talk to my wife, talk to my husband, I want to think about it, not quite ready yet. I don't want to sign a 12-month agreement. I don't want to take X amount of percentage. Whatever it is, it's one of those things that you got to make sure that you're constantly getting to your elite level right now to make sure you can dominate. The question you have to ask yourself, am I elite right now on all of these? Compared to the absolute best, not just here locally, but in the game over and over, nationally, I think a lot of them are. Next piece you're missing a lot on the skill set is the pre-frame. Missing a lot of this in the pre-frame. What's the pre-frame piece?
Not with bumps in the road. Setting expectations.
Setting expectations. That's the best way to put it, right? Which is the bumps, what it's like when you're working with me, what it's like when we make the pull the trigger, what it's like when things pop up at home inspection, because if that was the case and I was elite at that, wouldn't have so many deals blowing up, right? Wouldn't have people that ghost you, wouldn't have people that just don't buy. We'd be elite at this, and so I want to make sure I'm constantly optimizing this. I'm going to teach you a framework better a little bit to get better at these. I'll call it skill set, I'll call it leverage, which is referrals, right? Past clients, repeats, things like that. Some of you get a few referrals, think you're elite at it, right? You're not to that point where, am I truly elite where I'm getting one-to-one? Elite will be one-to-one. And I'll show you how to do it right. It's exponential. Mosey talks about most people live in a business churn where the experience is not good enough to get one-to-one from clients, which is why they're constantly on this grind, this hamster wheel so much. Right? If my skill set was good enough where I deliver the right experience to the client and I get the right follow-up to create leverage, I can get one-to-one from my past clients. You know, I'll teach on that next week, but that's something I've been studying a lot too. Okay? With me on this? I'll call that piece of it follow through. And this is why you see some people work less than others and sell 3 or 4 times the deals. If you wonder why, hey, look, why is so-and-so not showing up and they're not doing this or selling more deals, what do you think the difference is? Skill set, period. This is sales IQ. Some have a natural ability better than others, but the good news is all this can be learned. I'm not a natural salesperson, but I just figured the game out. I figured the psychology of it out in that scenario. This is where most people start to cap out, though. What's next, you think? The next piece of this It's execution. What do you think the execution piece means? How well am I actually doing it? How optimized am I in how I do it? So can I do more in less time to be able to focus my time on something else? Right? Do I have to have a listening presentation that takes 4 hours, but I could actually do it in 1 hour or 2 hours? Right? If I have a presentation that takes an hour, can I do it in 45 minutes? Right? How well am I executing all these things? How optimized am I at what I do there in that scenario? And the third piece here is, am I constantly evaluating my execution? What do you think that means?
Checking behind.
Am I checking behind and making sure I'm hitting all these pieces? For example, if I've been here for 5 months and 6 months, I don't know what what do you call that thing? Smart drip is. Am I really constantly evaluating my process? Right? If I don't have my own typed up emails and pre-done texts and things like that aren't just standard, am I constantly evaluating how I can get better? Right? There has to be this obsession with optimizing so you can be able to get more in less time. Okay, that's why most people cap out at 24 deals a year across really, many places. And then you see some that'll do double that. Why? They figured out how to optimize certain things. In most cases, what sets them apart is just simply this right here. Then most of them tend to do what? They get stuck at 40, 45. Because they feel like they've gotten to this basic skill set and they feel like they've just gotten everything and they feel good and they just stop there. Now, this is where the game really changes the next one. What do you think it is? What is it? No. It's a good one though. It's the hardest to master. Top one here, and it's for everybody in here. It's capacity. What do you think that means? Capacity. This is how much you can handle before you get off the wheel. This is how much you can handle before you get off the horse, so to speak. Both stress-wise, success-wise. Everybody tends to get up to this point. They'll do decent skill set, decent execution, and all of a sudden what happens here? We have two camps. Ones, they do really well, and they tend to do what? Take their foot off the pedal, and all of a sudden what happens? They slide right back down. What starts getting hurt the most? Discipline piece. They quit doing what got them there in the first place, and all of a sudden it slips and goes back. And all of a sudden they're riding the cycle. Or, what happens in many cases, right, is they tend to get stressed out, their capacity doesn't grow, and two things happen. They get burned out, or deals go sideways, happens, and all of a sudden what happens to their capacity? It's maxed out, it's wrecked, and all of a sudden their mental game goes down, the mindset piece fails, the discipline piece fails, and all of a sudden they're just resting only on skill set. And what happens is their business suffers in a large way. Most of these are something that happens external. For a certain part of people, it is an internal piece right here. They make a little money, make $30,000 a month, $20,000 a month, and all of a sudden they tend to pull their foot off the pedal. But what the most elite do is they're constantly growing their capacity, and they have this obsession where every month is going to be what? Their best month. Every month you want to focus on and making sure my best month ever. And what would life look like if every month was my best month ever? And it comes down to a standard versus feelings thing, which I'll talk about in a second. There's some basic stuff, but what happens is everyone's feeling on this a certain level. What's the biggest way you think to increase capacity? Yeah. Most top out right here is their natural ability. Between these two. A lot of times also comfort, but they're stopping out right here. There's two main ways to really, I've learned to do it. Number one, obviously, is pressure. That's a hard way to learn. The other way is to grow the way you think. For me, I've really done that the most through stacking. Why? Because I ask myself questions. We talked about before, the only way ever to change the way somebody thinks is by doing what? Questions. And so me going through that process of stacking over and over and over and over, thousands and thousands of times, has changed the way that my brain looks at things, changes at things, and so it's created a muscle that instantly, when shit goes sideways. The problem with most people in sales is things happen between here and here, and what happens to them? They have an emotional response. An emotional response kills momentum and it kills their execution. So as I train myself, one thing I want you guys to go back and look at and make sure you're talking about here. I think for some of you, you want to look at the ability to have stacking. The only way you do this is through reading, through learning, through other people. I've got to change the way that you what? That you think, and you're able to deal with problems. If I only grow my capacity through pressure, what happens? I tend to get burned out. I've been there many times. Right? It was a place when I first found Warrior, I was very, very burned out and very angry about everything. And so here, this is a piece where a lot of people are getting stuck. I want you to ask yourself, what can I do for myself to help grow my capacity? Meaning, I can do the same or more with less and less stress overall in that scenario. I watch many people who are very, very good, some of the top in the company, and all of a sudden they have really good weeks, really bad weeks. What do you think the difference is? Capacity. I can see the stress in their face, see the stress in their voice. They think they're hiding it, but guess who sees it? Everyone, including the clients. The coworkers do, clients see it. And so the reality is you have to be aware of like, how am I constantly hunting this down? And I'm able to make sure that I move this up, move this up, move this up. And this is where I want to ultimately get. So I live in a place here where all I'm doing is really focusing on these three here. Right? These become automatic, and this becomes a place I live, and this is something that I never let go away. Okay? And one thing that's important, based on any level you are, and obviously I'm trying to train everybody for every different level, but one thing I want you to look at, that, you know, over the next 12 months will be a lot of different things, but more importantly right now, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to make sure we can capture a lot of business. If you double down for the next 6, 12 months, people on the outside are going to be distracted by a lot of other issues, right? Things on the outside. And so if you can really focus and double down the next 6, 12 months, we can capture a lot of market share and you can do very, very well before things get tough.